Welcome to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. This is a podcast for faithful women who want healing in their relationships, guidance from God, and internal peace. Each week, you'll hear mental health concepts taught through a spiritual lens from me, a licensed clinical mental health counselor, to help you start thinking in a higher and holier way. All right. I'm so excited. We have an amazing guest on today. Tammy Hill is here to talk to us about dating your spouse after marriage. So welcome, Tammy. So excited to have you.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about who you are, what you do? I love everything that you're about on your Instagram page and what you're doing with your business. So tell us about yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So my name's Tammy Hill. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexual educator. I retired last year from teaching at Brigham Young University, where I taught courses on marriage and sexuality. I actually got to help co-create the first sexuality class that was ever taught on campus. So that
That's
was a big deal
amazing.
back in 2014, huge deal. So
Yeah.
let's see, I published a book called Replenish, Creating Sexual Fulfillment in Marriage in 2023. And I have a private practice. I do a lot of events like making love retreats. And I have a really fun, if you like Seattle, you might want to look this up because I'm doing a fun couples retreat in Seattle,
Mm.
May 17th through the 19th. And it's going to be fun. So
That's really cool. Seattle, that's a fun place.
it is.
Really,
It's
really
going to be
cool.
right down in Puget Sound. It's going to be beautiful.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, so my team and I were kind of thinking out our content throughout this year. And one of the topics that one of my team members came up with was, what about doing something about like dating your spouse after marriage? Like we get in this rut with kids and we just kind of get going. And I just thought of you and thought, Tammy will be a perfect fit for this. She's going to have some amazing things to teach us about that. So maybe let's start off with like the importance of continuing to date your spouse after marriage. Like why do we even want to do that? Why is that important?
Well, I think it's important because marriage is a different relationship than any other relationship we have. It's a sexual contract, and we have committed to someone that we will, in the covenant marriage, that you're going to be there with them, and that all of your sexual energy and romantic and flirty, affectionate energy, eros energy, is going to be directed only to them. And no other relationship you have do you need to have that type of energy. And one thing I believe that is fundamental to every human soul that comes into this world is the need to feel like they belong, the need to feel like they are important enough, that they're chosen and they're desired by someone. And especially in a romantic relationship, that attachment need, I think, is inherent in
Mm.
our DNA. And so when you marry someone, you have that energy when you're getting together, and
Yeah.
you have a lot of energy a lot of times when you're dating and engaged versus married. And then, like you said, Nikki, when real life happens, a lot of times it's like, well, we don't have time for each other anymore. We got all this other stuff to do. And yet, that's not going to create a lot of happiness and joy in your relationship, in your marriage relationship. And one other thought I had, that
Yeah.
why it's important to date in marriage, is that when you are a parent, you are modeling marriage for your children.
Mm.
So your children are learning all about romantic relationships by
Yeah.
watching you. And to me, as a mother, that has always been so important, that I'm modeling how to be a girlfriend. I'm modeling how to be a lover. I'm, not in not in
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
appropriate
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
I'm modeling how to have sexual energy in my marriage relationship for my kids so that they know how to do that in their own marriages.
Yeah, that is so important. I love that you said it's a sexual contract. That is
Mhm.
interesting. I have never really thought about marriage in that way, but that's
Yeah.
you're making that commitment. right?
You are. You're making this commitment that you're going to be true to this person. And most marriages, regardless of the religious background of the individuals, but most marriages in the entire world are considered a sexual contract of fidelity, that
Wow.
I'm choosing you. I'm choosing that you're going to be the one I share my sexuality with. Not now, that always doesn't remain that way, but
Right, right.
in the initial marriage vows, that's what most people are thinking and considering.
That
Um,
fidelity.
yeah, the fidelity. It's interesting. I'm sure you know who John Gottman is, but
Yeah.
he's really powerful research on why sex and romance is important in marriage. And I don't remember the percentages exactly, but it's roughly. He says that when a couple is not having frequent sex, and by that they say at least once a week, if
Okay.
they're not having a lot of romantic engagement and sexuality, shared sexuality in the marriage, more than 70% of them feel like the relationship's dissatisfactory. And then when
Interesting.
couples have that, are dating and they are sharing sex at least once a week within their marriage relationship, less than 20% of them feel like the relationship's dissatisfactory. So
Wow.
it's clear to me that romance, dating, sexuality is an important part of how you perceive your marriage.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a huge part of it. I think, yeah, it's just interesting to sort of think about it in that realm and that perspective. And like you obviously you think I'm marrying somebody, we're going to be faithful, but this is like thinking about it in that contract way. And this is something that is what brings us closer together and has this strengthening effect in our marriage, makes it more of a focus of priority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said that so well. Not
Yeah.
only is it a contract that you're making, but it as you fulfill that contract, you're going to be stronger together as a couple.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think that it becomes something that doesn't become a priority for us, right?
Mm.
That, okay, so this is important, this is a priority, but it sort of becomes this back burner. If I have time, we'll fit it in the cracks sort of situation. Why do you think that is? And what do you think kind of we start are the pitfalls or red flags or right yellow flags, I guess we can look for that we're going down this path.
Such an important question. And I guess I'll ask you, Nikki, when you were growing up in your home, because all of us learn about marriage by observing our parents' marriages.
Right. Yeah.
So I know as a girl growing up that anytime I felt like my dad made some type of um advance, like affectionate touch with my mom, like if she was working in the kitchen and he came in and tried to hug her from the back, should I it was always pushing him away, and rarely did I see them be very affectionate with each other. Now sometimes they
Yes.
were, but it was not evident in our
Mhm.
home that they, especially on my mom's end, that she really enjoyed that aspect of their marriage.
Yeah.
And so because that's, I think generationally, we've kind of thought, oh yeah, women just show up for men. It's our responsibility to take care of their sexual needs, but we don't really have any sexual needs.
Yeah.
And I think that might be a big part of it, that we just haven't had healthy marriages modeled to us. And I think that's so powerful to know that in each one of our homes, whoever's listening, you have the you have the power to generationally change your children and your grandchildren's
Mm.
future perspective of marriage.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the way that we let it kind of get on the back burner is that I don't think a lot of us has really seen it modeled in a really dynamic way. What about your
Mhm.
experience?
That's an interesting thought. I think that, yeah, that wasn't, I think back even like friends' parents or things like that, my parents, like, yeah, you're right. That wasn't something that I saw modeled, or intimacy, holding hands, even sitting by each other, right? Like it was, yeah, like even at the dinner table, they're apart from each other. They're into separate living rooms. They're in, you know what I mean? Like they're not going to bed at the same time. Like that just
Right.
wasn't modeled in that way, right? And and I think that, and you said something interesting that made me think like, wow, you can model this as a grandparent.
Yes.
Like, that's so cool. Like, I think because a lot of women listening, maybe they're like, oh, I missed the boat. My kids are out, right? Or I've done this. But wow, you can be an example as a grandparent too. Like, you can make this shift in generational change. It's never too late to
It
make that
isn't.
change.
And I love that you said that because we have quite a few grandchildren, and my little 4-year-old grandson, he knows that Friday night is our date night. And my husband, I was going to teach your listeners a little thing that I
Yeah.
use with my clients when we do therapy, and it's something my husband and I have done for years together, is that we alternate pursuing. So one week
Mm.
I'm the pursuer in the marriage, and then the next week he pursues. And that means that this week is my turn to pursue. So I need to plan the Friday date, and it's usually on Fridays. I'm the one that's going to pursue sex this week.
Yeah.
And it makes it so that I'm not, Jeff knows
Waiting.
that I'm going to do this. He doesn't need to worry that it's
Hmm.
never going to happen. And then when next week, when it's his turn to pursue, I know I don't need to worry. I can just kick back and relax. And he's got the romantic aspect of our marriage. He's
Yeah.
in charge of that. So I was
I
talking
love
to
that.
my grandson a few weeks ago, and he said he wants so much to come and have a sleepover. And he said, but I know I can't come on Friday because Friday's date night.
That's awesome.
You're
That's so
right. You
cool.
can't come on Friday.
That's so cool. They know that and they know that you prioritize that. And
Mhm.
doesn't, I think sometimes we get in our heads like, oh, well, I got to spend time with the kids and I got to do these things. And we put this prioritization of our raising our family and our kids, which is good, but we almost put it above our marriage relationship, thinking that that's going to help our kids. Like, if I prioritize them, that's better for them. It's kind of like the mental health thing. Like, if I don't prioritize myself and I prioritize my kids, then they'll be better off. But it backfires in that way. That
Totally.
really is taking that time out of your week to spend with your spouse teaches them something and
Mhm.
helps them identify healthy relationships moving forward.
Oh, I love everything you're saying, and I totally agree with it. It's like in an airplane, they'll have you put your mask on first before you help someone.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I think if there's this joyful, and not to say that it's always easy and that
Yeah.
it's always playful and fun. There's some dates that you go walking and you have these gut-wrenching conversations about hard things that you're dealing with financially, or maybe
Yeah.
it's an illness or a parent that's struggling or a child that's in a bad spot. Um, there's times when these dates aren't all about fun,
Mm-hmm.
but it is always about us trying to get together and be on the same page with whatever, is happening.
Yeah. And I love that. So I've kind of talked with clients sometimes about like scheduling things out like that. And the pushback I always get is like, doesn't that take the fun out of it when it's like scheduled like that? Or doesn't that, like how you put that kind of thing on the calendar, like who's the pursuer kind of thing? What is your kind of retort to that when people feel that way?
Yeah, I hear that all the time too.
Yeah.
And, if you're in a relationship right now and you want things to happen spontaneously and they are not happening spontaneously, then I think give it a try. See,
Mhm.
because what's happening now obviously isn't working, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a relationship where you like it to be spontaneous and things are happening spontaneously and you're feeling like things are fine, I don't think you
You don't
need
have
to
to change anything.
don't change it, right? But for us, so my late I was married and my first husband passed away
Mm.
about 22 years ago, and we had 4 children. My husband's wife passed away and they had 8 children. So when Jeff
Wow.
and I got to married, we had 12 children and we raised 9 of those children together. And can you imagine our calendars with
Right?
school, with sports, with music lessons, with everything, my work, my husband's work, our
Yeah.
calendaring incredibly complicated.
I bet.
And we would look through the calendar and I prioritize sex. Of course, as a sex therapist, you would
Yeah.
probably guess that part of
Yeah.
it's something that brings me a lot of happiness. And so
Yeah.
it's been important to me and it's important to him. But we go through the calendar and try to find a time when we could be alone together for 1 or 2 hours. And then we would write on the calendar HS, and it would just stand it was our little code. There's going to be hot sex right here
Oh,
sometime.
that's awesome.
We did that for a really long time. And then
Yes.
the two youngest sons, were looking at the calendar one day, and this is years ago, and one of them said, "What does HS mean?" And I remember I was cooking dinner and it just froze like, "Oh crap, I don't know what I'm going to say." And the other brother said, "Oh, it's something at the high school." And so at the high school. So so we say we're going to the high school now. It's kind of our little code. We've got to
That's
run
awesome.
to high school.
I love that. I love that.
That we
Okay.
wouldn't, with our busyness, especially with all the demands with that, I know that we could so easily have let this aspect of our marriage just slip be
Yeah.
by the wayside, and I that makes me sad to think about doing that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love that tip. Scheduling it out. Scheduling out. That's so good. So, what other tips do you have for people? So, people want to, they're invested now. They're like, I'm going to prioritize this. I'm going to be that example. I want to date my spouse. How can they do it?
Yeah. So I have three thoughts about that.
Okay.
One
Okay.
is I already mentioned is pursuing, is
Yeah.
the alternating pursuing. To me, for us and for many of my clients I worked with through the years, alternating pursuing has really elevated their dates. It's elevated their connection because one person is thinking about it and making plans for it and taking care of it while the other just enjoys. And then it's back and forth. It's not always just one person's responsibility.
Yeah.
That is three P's. One is pursuing. The second idea was to look back in your relationship past and see what did you do when you were growing in love and dating and first married. What were things that really brought you together that created a
Mm,
lot of energy and happiness in your relationship, and start going back and trying to do some of those things that initially brought you together again. So go back and bring it more a little bit
I
into the
love that. So,
now.
really thinking about like when you were falling in love and before you were married and, had all those feelings, like what were you doing and what did you enjoy doing together?
Yeah,
And kind of
yeah.
bringing back those moments of connection, like what connected us in the first place, what did we love doing, and what
100%.
made us fall in love in the first place, kind of restoring some of those emotions.
Yeah, that's a good word. It's restoration of that. So pursue, go into the past, and then the third one is is passionate. I think passionate, finding things you're passionate about together, create, do new things, learn new skills together. My husband and I over the last few years have learned how to play pickleball, and we love
Mm,
it. And it's something we look forward to doing together. And so find things that you're passionate, both passionate about, and then learn new things with and don't be afraid to
yeah.
learn new things, I guess.
I love that. Like passions doesn't have to be sexual, it can just be something that you guys do as a hobby together. Like you might both have your own hobbies, but what is something that you guys can do together and work
Right.
together with? I know last year, was it last year or 2 years ago, we decided to hike the Grand Canyon, the rim to rim. So, of course,
Wow.
there's tons of training for that, right? Just being on your
Ah,
feet. So, every Saturday, we were walking like hours and hours just out in dirt roads, like just trying to
wow.
get time on our feet. But it was so wonderful because I would get so tired and I'm like, tell me another story, tell me another story, keep my brain off this. And I was like, you need to save all your stories for Saturday. And you need to have all these things planned. But it was so fun. And I missed those times where we had that time where we could just connect and we were forced to just talk. We're out in the middle of nowhere, walking a dirt road for hours at a time and just with each other. So finding something that you guys can do together and joke and have fun and enjoy each other.
Yeah, I love that you guys did that. That's a big accomplishment. And there's a little part in that you work together to accomplish this goal. And I
Yeah.
think even that, your dates can be around accomplishing. Maybe you're refurbishing a piece of furniture
Ooh.
or finishing a puzzle that you got at Christmas or whatever it is. I mean, you're kind of working together to accomplish something. And anytime we do that, it's very connecting to the relationship.
I love that idea too, that sometimes they're like, well, I don't have money to go out on a date. We don't have time, we don't have money for dinner or pay the babysitter, but just like you can be at the house and be together working on a project together that you already would have done, right?
Mhm,
Or,
mhm.
just together working towards something and enjoying each other. That
Right, right.
that's so cool.
And one thing, if you really don't know what to do, clean the bathroom naked together. Lock
Oh,
the
that's
door.
awesome. I love that.
It's super, super fun. You'll have a lot more fun than you think.
Yes. That is totally free and your bathroom gets clean.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it. Those are such good ideas. Okay, so tell me the three P's again. So
Is to alternate pursuing. So pursue
pursuing.
each other,
Yep.
go to the past and remember things that you enjoyed
Okay.
and kind of, like you say, restore them. And third is find things that you're passionate about together and do them together.
Oh, those are amazing tips. I love that. They feel really doable. Sometimes when
Mhm.
you get things, you're like, oh, well, then that's going to make me do this, and that's going to make me like it becomes this big plan. But even just one of those, I think sometimes we think we have to have these big grand plans and we have to do a whole bunch of work, but it's through small and simple things that great things are brought to pass, right? So it can be
True.
very simple. And I think the key in all of this is intention, that
Mhm,
you're
mhm.
intentionally doing each of
Yes,
these things, right? You're not letting it happen. You're not waiting for these times to happen or somebody else to do it, but be intentional. And even if it starts with you as the female person doing some of these things, right? I think sometimes when we were talking about like culture and past and things like that, sometimes it's like, well, the man is supposed to do that, right? Like the man
right,
is supposed to
right.
be the one that is taking me out on a date or talking about these things or being the pursuer or and I think as women we give away a lot of our power when we wait for other people to do things,
Oh,
friendships, in our
yes,
relationships, or like, and just say, well, that's not happening to me, rather like being acted upon rather than being the person that's acting. And we can do that. And it can be something simple as, hey, will you sit down and do this puzzle with me? And
right.
just let's do this together.
Yeah. That I think you have a real gift with words, Nikki.
Oh,
The
thank
way
you.
you say things just seems to flow off your tongue so well.
Well, as a therapist, you do lots of talking or summarizing, I should say, of summarizing of what people are talking about. That's our main job.
And
Yeah.
intention is all about intention. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Just be intentional about your relationship and really thinking about it as a priority, as this sexual contract that you made. Fulfill that
Hmm.
and make that a priority in your life, also as an example for your children so
Hmm.
that they can find healthy relationships. I think, and they know what healthy is.
Yes. Yes.
So good. So good. I'm so glad I picked the perfect person to come on and talk about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was so fun to be with you.
Yes. So tell people where they can find you.
Okay.
Where should they go?
So tammyhill.com is my website, TammyHill. I'm on Instagram at Tammy_Hill_ LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapist. Um, I host my own podcast called the
Yeah.
Live Your Why podcast, which is really is that we're in our fourth season and it's all about living with integrity in your to living kind of with your sexual integrity in your dating and marriage relationships.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so awesome. And then you tell me about the TLC club. I saw that on
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mentioned that. So, I taught at BYU. I retired last year from BYU, and so many of my students are young marrieds, and then the things I interact with a little bit on Instagram, and then also seeing couples in therapy. So last fall, it just there was like about a 4-week time period where I felt like everyone was telling me how they are too tired to have sex, or they're
Mm,
just, there's just not time for it, or they're too stressed out. And there were all these I was just hearing all of this, and I thought, you
yeah.
know what? I know that your relationship's going to be happier if you guys show up for each other this way. And so I decided to do something, and I created, it's called TLC, for Touch, Love, Connect. And
Oh,
it's a community of couples who have joined a subscription that's $10 a month. I keep it so cheap so that
yeah.
people can come. And every month, the first Tuesday of every month, I do a webinar, a virtual webinar on questions that they've submitted. So in
Oh,
February, the webinar was all about dealing with porn in marriage.
ooh,
Next week in March is the first Tuesday, so it's next Tuesday night. I've had so many questions on pleasure and oral lovemaking, and so
mhm,
it's going to be all about that. And so I do the webinar. You get access to the webinar to review for 30 days, and then I also every week send out a newsletter with a little additional research or a little intervention that might help with this, or some ideas on how to incorporate the topic that we're talking
yeah.
about that month in the relationship. And it is so fun. It is so fun.
That's so cool. What a great
Join
resource.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, to everyone, check that out. Then you find it on your website.
they can find that on my website. It's under
Okay.
TLC Club. It's on Instagram under TLC community or club. Yeah, TLC.
Awesome. Well, I'll link it. I'll find it on there and I'll link it in our show
Oh,
notes and
thank
everybody
you.
can find it in there. Yes, that sounds like a wonderful resource. And definitely check out your book and follow Tammy on Instagram.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you, Nikki,
absolutely.
so much.
Yes, thank you. This was wonderful.
It was.
Thank you for listening to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. I hope you were able to find ways of healing, guidance, and peace. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend who would love to start thinking in a higher and holier way as well. Or hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any episodes. Also, check out the links in my show notes for other episodes you might like and links for other mental health resources on my website.